Suppose an object weighs 58 pounds and has a force of 46 pounds acting on it 30 degrees from the horizontal. What single force is the resultant force acting on the body? We can use the black vector, we'll call that vector v sub 1, to represent the 58-pound object. Notice the only force is downward with the force of 58 pounds. And then we'll use the red vector to represent the 46-pound force acting at a 30-degree angle from the horizontal. So we'll call this vector v sub 2, and we know this angle here is 30 degrees. And now let's list the components of the vectors. For vector v sub 1, because the force is 58 pounds, we know the magnitude is 58, and because the force is only downward, the x component is 0 and the y component is negative 58. And now let's work on determining the components of vector v sub 2. The force is 46 pounds, we know the magnitude is 46, and the direction is 30 degrees from the horizontal, which indicates in our notes theta is 30 degrees. This indicates the x component is equal to the magnitude of 46 times cosine 30 degrees, and the y component is the magnitude of 46 times sine 30 degrees. Recall cosine 30 degrees equals the ratio of the adjacent side to the hypotenuse, which is square root 3 divided by 2, and sine 30 degrees equals the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse, which is 1/2. Which means vector v sub 2 has an x component of 46 times square root 3 divided by 2, and a y component of 46 times 1/2. Simplifying, the x component is 23 square root 3, and the y component is 23. And now again, to find the resultant vector, or the resultant force, we sum vector v sub 1 and vector v sub 2. So we'll call the resultant vector vector r, which equals, again, vector v sub 1 plus vector v sub 2. To add the two vectors, we add the corresponding components. The x component of the resultant force is 0 plus 23 square root 3, or 23 square root 3. And the y component is negative 58 plus 23, which is negative 35. So this is the resultant vector that the question is asking for. But let's also show the sum of the two vectors graphically. One way to add the two vectors is to place the initial point of vector v sub 2 at the terminal point of vector v sub 1, which would look like this, and then sketch a vector from the initial point of vector v sub 1 to the terminal point of vector v sub 2, which would give us this vector here, which is the resultant vector. This vector has an x component of 23 square root 3 and a y component of negative 35. I hope you found this helpful.